right, welcome to the Dales Report. I'm happy to be joined with the CEO of PharmaDrug, Daniel Cohen, back to the show. Daniel, how's the summer going? How are things?
Things are going really well. We're very busy and there's a lot going on.
Yeah, we getting prepped. I know it's been kind of the summer doldrums as far as the market's concerned, let's face it. But I think a lot of people, a lot of investors, they might feel a little bit of fatigue within this industry right now, which is why we want to obviously continue to have people on, providing updates. There's a lot going on that you said, but how are things, I guess, progressing on the back end with you? We'll get into more details, but as far as the back end, what's kind of advice that you can maybe share to investors about how this whole industry is maturing?
Well, the reality is that there's, we're so early in the industry and everyone is doing a lot of work. And I find that investors sometimes are getting a little bit impatient, and we've seen that in share prices. You make an announcement that you're focused on a specific sector or a specific formulation, things of that sort, and people want to see an update like a month later. But you know what? It takes 3 months to get from point A to point B, and I think that investors need to be patient because this is the building of a brand new sector, right? And so there's a lot of work to do. We've been hard at work. There's been a little bit of a delay in us announcing certain things that people have wanted to see, but they're all coming. We'll talk about that today.
Well, let's first begin. Your company, PharmaDrug, has previously received orphan drug designation for DMT and the prevention of ischemic reperfusion injuries. So first, what is that for people that are not familiar with it?
Well, really, what we filed for was specifically for kidney transplants, right? And then they just kind of broadened it out because it's up to us to narrow it as we move the program further or forward. Now, we have some news coming in the short term, and I'll talk about that a little bit, but it's not going to be specifically related to that. That doesn't mean that we're not moving that forward, but we might have talked about this in the past, is that there's an issue that happens in kidney transplants and other types of organ transplants where the organ fails during the transplant. Why is that? Well, it's intuitive that once you remove the kidney from the blood flow, that the kidney might go through some damage. What's a little less intuitive is that when you reintroduce the blood flow, i.e. the kidney goes into the new body and the blood flow starts and it starts integrating, there's an initial reaction and rejection from the organ. And so we've seen and we believe that DMT can work to calm the organ to be able to accept the blood flow and to integrate properly into the body.
Interesting.
And it's that work that is extremely important for us, and it'll become clear in the next few weeks because there's two very important things to focus on here. Specifically, that we are focused on DMT, and we've told everybody that we are, but we are not focused on neuropsychiatric indications. We're not doing PTSD, we're not doing depression, so on and so forth. There are other really good companies doing really good work there. We got to find something else, right? And we found it. That's number one. Number two, it's DMT with its potential as an anti-inflammatory and antioxidative agent. And it's those two things that are going to define what we're going to be releasing soon, because we've been hard at work developing our commercial strategy. And we're just on the final touches before we can announce it to the public. And the way we see things in terms of the psychedelic biotech sector is that the way we've defined it internally is to have a plausible commercial strategy. You need what we call internally the holy trinity or the triumvirate. Well, what does that mean? Well, you need a unique indication, a unique sickness. Can't be yet another company focusing on PTSD or depression, so on and so forth. So a unique indication. You need a unique formulation. You can't put a patent on LSD, right? No. You need to have a version of LSD that you can patent. And so when we're working with DMT, we're going to want to, come up with a unique formulation. Now, that's not just for the sake of being able to create a patent. It's also because, DMT for different situations will need to be altered somewhat. And then the third pillar, which is proving to be quite important for psychedelics and the pharmaceutical sectors, is delivery technology, a delivery mechanism. So to me, that is the holy trinity, right? Unique.
What do you mean by that?
Unique formulation, unique delivery technology, and that's definitely patentable. So we are in the final touches of being able to announce to the public, forming a partnership with someone who can help us develop the technology. The idea came from us, but to help us develop the actual delivery technology, and we'll be able to announce that in the next couple of weeks.
So commercial rollout.
Very clear once we announce that where we're heading.
Okay.
And so the past few months have been very busy. Is starting foundational research, working with the University of Michigan, bringing on guys like Stephen Barker, filing for the ODD for the kidney transplants. All of that internally, married with our own research and reading all these studies that have been done in academia, and that helped us develop our strategy. Now, like I said, we'll be hearing about that in 2 weeks. It'll be a lot clearer what we've been doing and where we're going on DMT.
Investors should get excited, I assume.
I think so. I think it's unique. We're going to be able to claim our own stake in terms of DMT in the biotech pharmaceutical sector.
DMT has really gained a lot of momentum. Do you not think in the last couple of months with some of the studies that are taking place?
Oh, most definitely. A lot more companies are starting to focus on DMT, and there's something special about DMT. That doesn't mean.
What does that present? Like we always talk about, it's not the first one out of the gate that wins, but what are some advantages if investors want to ask? Like this is something you've been focusing on. You partnered obviously with some reputable institutions across the world, but what should investors take away knowing that you're already, well into this compared to people that are just starting, knowing that DMT is garnering interest?
The reason why we are so excited about DMT specifically is, we probably should have scientific officer on the show to talk about DMT and the science part of it, because he's been doing a lot of work and he's well educated on it and very intelligent on it. But the one thing that I will say that makes DMT very different than all of the others is that DMT gets produced in the body. It appears in the body endogenously. And so that makes it a lot more intuitive that it could be used for things to treat within the body.
Right.
It appears in the human body.
I was unaware of that.
Rats. It appears in plants throughout nature. It is a real substance, and it's not just something that's administered externally.
Interesting. Well, in addition to what we've outlined, you've also been preparing a pre-IND for a patent enteric-coated formulation of cepharanthine, an oral antiviral pill to treat mild, moderate COVID-19. So needless to say, novel treatments are a hot topic right now, and it's looking like the vaccines, let's face it, are not the be all and end all for the pandemic. And in addition to that, the Biden government is putting lots of money into alternative treatments. Hello, finally the world's starting to wake up. So first question, do you agree with that? Are you finding that? And, if so, like when can investors expect movement on this front with regulators? Do you have any idea?
So I think a lot of people are working on COVID drugs, and the reality is that we are now, and look, the vaccines are extremely important, and we believe people should be taking the vaccines.
Yep.
The reality is that there are a lot of variants, and we're seeing countries that have had higher rates of vaccinations who started earlier in the vaccination programs are starting to see people that were vaccinated get infected. And so the question becomes, is the efficacy as strong for the variants? Number one. Number two, we can say whatever we want. We don't know what the efficacy is after a year because it hasn't been administered for a year yet. So I think these are the two driving factors that are going to make the world realize, and it's starting to realize right now, that it's not just a vaccine. We need medication. We need medicine for people that are in ICUs.
Yeah.
We also need medicine for people that are just starting to get it early onset. Maybe even as a prophylactic, meaning that you're going to an event where there's going to be a lot of people. Maybe there's a pill you could be taking that not only protects you, but maybe starts taking care of you if you did get it, right? And so there's going to be a large need for that. We know the Biden government has committed $3.5 billion to the development of a COVID drug. We are at work there. It's our partner in the development of Cepharanthine is American, and that might actually make us eligible, but that's too soon. I don't want to promise anything there, but we're looking into that.
That's good. You also reported positive results from your ongoing preclinical study evaluating a patent enteric-coated formulation of cepharanthine in a broad panel of human cancers. So can you explain what the processes, are involved, when you move the research from the Petri dish to animal studies?
So let's step back for a second. We announced that we are doing 2 phases of the Petri dish, right? The first phase is that we're taking cepharanthine and we're applying it to 60 different cancer cell lines. So 60 different cancers. And in that first phase, we are testing cepharanthine versus known agents, which are types of chemos that are being used for cancers right now.
Okay.
We've already gotten 35 of those Petri dishes back with results, and 11 of them showed that cepharanthine at doses that we know are safe, because remember, it's been used in Japan for 70 years. So we have data on what amounts of cepharanthine administered to the human body is safe. And so based on those types of levels of dosage, we've seen that there's 11 cancers where the impact is significant, meaning that it's either as good or even better than the current chemo being used.
Wow.
We're waiting for the other 25 cancer cell lines to come back.
Yeah.
Once we've already started working on submitting provisional patents on those cancers. So once we get those final results in a couple of weeks and file those patents for the cancers that we find interesting, we'll be able to come out, name the cancers, and show the market the data that we're talking about. That's going to be phase 1 of the preclinical. Phase 2 of the preclinical is that.
That's big, Daniel.
Oh, that's huge. I think it's huge in terms of the data that I've already seen with my own eyes, and that obviously our chief scientific officer is working on.
What's his
the second one, which we've already started designing?
Can I ask what his response has been to it? So, with regards to your scientific officer, with regards to some of the stuff that's come back,
he's extremely excited. He's extremely excited. Mm-hmm. We're actually a little bit more excited about the second phase, and so what we're going to do is we're going to take our favorite cancers, i.e., the ones that have the best data, because it's not just that cepharanthine has potential in blocking the spread or killing cancer cells. Mm-hmm. It's that it's been shown that it might be able to reduce chemo resistancy in cancer cells. Wow. And that's what the next study is going to be. We're going to choose the best 10 cancers or so, and we're going to work on them in the Petri dish combined with chemo, so that to see if there's a synergy. And that's one of the things that, a lot of the experts that we've been dealing with, that we brought on as advisors, have been saying is actually probably the most significant potential in cepharanthine. And that is its ability to either reduce the chemo resistancy or work synergistically with the chemo. And so that's the information we're going to get out of that. That test is going to be done in August. And then once we finish that test, we'll be able to choose our favorite 3 cancers and do an actual animal model. Yeah. That will take a few months. And then after that, we'll choose, and along the way, we'll be filing patents on everything. And then we'll choose the one cancer, which obviously, we're leaning towards esophageal cancer, but we will choose the best cancer to proceed with a pre-IND submission to the FDA once that's all done. And we're working to get all that done by the end of the year.
Even if one passes,
we only need one to pass.
That's it. That's incredible. It's incredible the research that's being done and the stuff that I'm learning as to, even
so. I mean, it's been shown potential for many years. The problem with cepharanthine was that it had a low bioavailability. Remember, our version of cepharanthine has a bioavailability that is 10 times the amount of bioavailability that the cepharanthine that's currently available in Japan has. And that's what makes it a game changer. Right?
So explain to somebody that's learning new bioavailability. Can you explain further on what that means?
Right. So sometimes you might hear that, are you deficient in calcium? Then eat some spinach, because spinach has a certain amount of milligrams of calcium. Right. But then you find out when you eat the spinach that your body only absorbs a certain percentage of that calcium that's actually in there and ends up rejecting the rest of it. Right. It's the same thing with cepharanthine. So the bioavailability is only 6%. So for every 100 milligrams of cepharanthine that's available in Japan right now that you take, your body only absorbs 6 milligrams of it for each 100 milligrams that you put into the body. Our bioavailability, or the bioavailability for our version of cepharanthine, is more like 60 or 70%. So that's a game changer in terms of potency. And and the ability to use it. One of the problems why Cepharanthine hasn't been used for COVID, to step back to the COVID application, is that they said that, you know, a lot of academic studies have been done on Cepharanthine and its potential with COVID, but everyone comes up with the same conclusion. You can't use Cepharanthine because you would have to be in the hospital and be on IV to have it continuously administered, which is not what you want. You want it in a pill form so you can take it at home. That's what our Cepharanthine has the ability to do, potentially.
Interesting stuff, to say the least. Last thing I wanted to ask, we understand the company is going to be headed to Europe early next month for a meeting regarding the execution of the supply agreement made with an emerging Eurozone cannabis extractor, which was announced back in May, along with super smart division dealing. So how are these assets progressing, and what should investors be looking for in the next couple of quarters based off of this trip?
Right. So we're going to be going in a few weeks to Germany. I'm going with Paul, our Chief Scientific Officer in Germany, and then we're going to be meeting Harry, the president of Super Smart, over in Amsterdam. So firstly in Germany, and we're going to be, after we get back, we'll be able to update everyone on what's going on those two divisions. Firstly in Germany, as we've said, we are going to be launching our own THC oil under our own brand in September. We're still on track. That company, it's a private company in Denmark, has already received their EU GMP certification. That's happened since we've made our announcement. And we've already, we're almost finalized on our own supply chain quality management assessment that we need to do under the, you know, the requirements of our license in Germany. So we're going to be down in Germany to basically finalize and approve the marketing plan for the branding and the launching of our THC oil in September. So that's, we'll be able to come back and talk about that. And on the super smart side, we're obviously going to be in Amsterdam. We're going to visit some locations, some cities. But right now, we're really pushing forward on the launch of our two websites, the American one and the European/Dutch one. What we're going to want to do, what we're already working on, and what we'll be able to update the market on in August, is that we will be launching our own slim branded products on the truffle side, and especially on the functional mushroom side. And that's going to be a huge initiative in the United States. We're working on launching a slim branded functional mushroom product that we think is differentiated and has a different approach than the products that are currently in the market. So we'll talk about that in August.
Psychedelic company generating revenue. You don't hear about that right now, right?
Yeah. Well, first we're going to launch the products. We're continuing to build traffic to those websites. And we think the revenue will start to pick up, and, you know, obviously when we launch these products.
How's the regulatory framework progressing in Germany with regards to medicinally THC is legalized there, correct? Yes or no?
It's medicinal, right? So it's you got to have a prescription.
Yep.
And you buy it at a pharmacy. So it's treated like a narcotic drug, prescription narcotic drug. Yep. There are people talking about starting to maybe relax those laws a little bit. I know that Berlin, actually the city of Berlin, has talked about potentially starting a pilot program where you allow people to opt into this that don't have a prescription. They still have to buy it from a pharmacy, but they would have to log in and basically state what their feedback is in terms of their side effects and the impact on them in general. So that's not been approved, but there's a lot of talk about that. So you're seeing a broader acceptance of cannabis, however, still as a medicine. They just may allow people to self-medicate, but right now it's still seen as a prescription medicine.
Good to know. Wow, a lot going on, I guess.
A lot going on.
At least, huh?
Yeah, and the next 3 to 5 weeks, we'll see a lot of developments. This is not about press releases. This is about showing the market that, you know, we made a lot of announcements about what we're going to be working on in the spring. And then August will show that every single one of those initiatives is actually moving forward and developing.
Well, enjoy your round of golf or two here in July, because there's going to be no time available, because it seems to be, like, from what I'm hearing, a very, very busy, but it's exciting in the growth of with regards to the overall industry as we focus here on the back of 2021. Appreciate the time. Let's keep in touch.
For sure.
All right. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you.